Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle Podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy, and definitely full of light, love, and joy. Catherine Corona, welcome back, Catherine.
Hi, Philip. It's so good to see you again. And we were just talking about how, I just realized I didn't turn my phone off, but I don't even see it. So let's see what happens. But that we both sort of started right around right around the same time.
You are my favorite guest number 2. And you're the first guest for English-speaking guests, so you're basically actually guest number 1. But so I'm still in my head trying to put together, for real, you're guest number 1, but absolutely you're guest number 2.
Fantastic.
I'm so happy that you came back, because I love to have these guests to come in from time to time. It also gives some kind of a meaning and structure, and also a little bit, it feels good because, my second podcast, I was not know what is going on and what to expect from the conversations, where it all lead. And you really inspired me in this second podcast. And I think quite a lot of podcasts after were drawn from the conversation I had with you. So I see you as a great inspiration. So thank you so very much for kind of bringing me the right way, the right push in the right direction. Thank you from the deepest heart.
And back to you from my heart.
Well, and let's jump right. Oh no, I know that people will complain if I nevertheless who see you the first time, because I've been doing this. I have another guest. So like you are second time here. I have one more guest who's the third time here. And because he feels like family, so we start talking with him immediately. And then people send me messages. You must introduce the guest. You must give him chance. We don't know him. So please, Catherine, for the people who don't know who you are, just give a couple of minutes, quick background, who you are and where you come from before we can finally go into conversation.
Okay, great. Yeah. My name's Catherine Corona. I live outside of Boulder, Colorado, in the United States, on a ranch here. And I grow hay and I have horses and kind of living my dream life. I'm training a baby yearling right now, and her mother, I rescued these horses, so she was a law enforcement seizure. So she has a really good life with me, and we're learning about each other. And I've had over 50-year spiritual practices, routine, method, program that I have done, gleaned from many different spiritual traditions. Because when I was young, I had this wonderfully strange experience of everywhere I moved for a couple of years, 3, 4 years, I lived next to some kind of world-renowned spiritual teacher. So I didn't go out looking for it. It was right there next door. So next door to me, when I lived in the mountains on a ranch, was some Sufi, a teacher called Rashad Field. It's a sort of an esoteric branch of Islam. And they also practice what I practice, which is the sound current, celestial melodies in yoga, Nadi yoga, the yoga of sound, the Nam, that inner sound that is always ringing. It's always ringing because, as we know, everything's created out of vibration. So there's a very refined sort of flow of energy that you can see, hear, feel, and use as a practice to bring you into the source of creation, if it takes you there, or bring you into a deeper loving or caring, or come into stillness. So I studied with the Sufis that's my version of how to explain it. They may explain it differently. But I first was introduced to it with them. And then I studied with John Roger, who's a sound current teacher who comes through the line of Sawan Singh, which is a Sikh practice, and they practice the sound current. I'm not sure they would say that, but it's that inner music. So that's where I came from. And once I was introduced to it, I was studying hard sciences in college. And once I was introduced to it, I quit college because I went, I would rather learn this. I want to learn this. This seems much more full of life. I did go back to college later and I got my bachelor's degree, and then I went on and I have a doctorate in spiritual science and a master's degree in theology. So I kept going with school later on. But I learned from those teachers, also a Hindu teacher who taught mantra meditation. And through all that, I just found, and through having a course in my doctorate in spiritual science, which was how do you take what's the best for you to connect you with your soul and your spirit? Because everybody's going to be slightly different. So what works for you? So I practice what works for me, and just curating the most profound of the ancient practices that I was exposed to. Then I practiced them for 50 years, going on a little more now. Yeah.
And see what happens.
No, and see what, well, that's the thing. When you start with a mindset, that word is bandied around a lot, but when you start with the attitude of I'm an empty vessel, or I'm up for the adventure. That was my mindset, my intention. I am up for the adventure. Let's see where it goes. And all these 50 years later, I'm really happy with myself. And this physical, mental, emotional, it's like, I wasn't when I started. I wasn't.
We're living in a time of world where we have to apologize. We're happy. It's like, prepare yourself for crazy information. I'm actually just happy.
Just happy.
Yeah.
Just happy.
Yeah.
And
I
a
get
lot
you.
of things happen. Yeah. And we all deserve that. We all deserve our happiness, our well-being, peace of mind. It's really our natural state. When I studied at the University of Santa Monica, they have a program in spiritual psychology, and they would say 50% of our work is healing, and 50% of our work is transcending into the awareness and the awakening of our soul and spirit. And we all have things to heal. It doesn't mean we're not happy though, right? So when we confront the things that we have to heal, lift, release, change, come back into wholeness, which is part of the spiritual path, it doesn't mean we're not happy though, along the way, and even joyful along the way, because that's the great adventure too. One of the sayings I love, and I kind of live, is, it takes great courage to see the face of God, because you have to see your own face. So that's 50%, is looking at all those things that might be in the way of your soul and your spirit, of God, of divinity, of whatever word you want to talk about. What's blocking you? What's in the way of that? What belief systems? How are you limiting yourself? And kind of slicing through all that, healing that, casting it away. And in my 50 years of practice, I'm still doing it, but I did a lot of that. And I can claim it and go, yeah, that's what spiritual practice does. And the other thing it does, in my experience, is it brought me anyway to an awareness and awakening of really right into the heart of the Creator. Just where there's such oneness, it's such bliss. It's, what they call samadhi or nirvana or ecstasy. And it's available for every single person. It's available. And to live from that place and share from that place, just so much falls away. For me, just all my negative desires without me trying just fell away. I didn't really want anything in this world anymore. But when I was younger, I was on that hamster wheel by conditioning of society. You've got to have this degree and go to that and get this job and do that. And then over the years, it's like, yeah, no, I don't. No, I don't. Yeah, I have to take care of my livelihood. We all do. But beyond that, I know there's everything I need. Everything is inside. The kingdom of heaven is within. And then it's not an intellectual concept anymore. It's a way of being. Because you come into the beingness rather than the doingness.
I'm with you, Catherine. Let's a little bit take it apart piece by piece. First of all, you say happy, and that is totally fair enough. I like the word content a lot. And I guess it's maybe different description of a maybe not so different feeling. But for me personally, I'm content works a bit better than to say I'm happy. But I guess this is just the way we phrase things, that we all, I guess, mean the same thing. And you said something that a bit surprised me, because I had this version of Catherine in my head. The Catherine in my head is looking at the time when you lived beside the Sufi and so on and so forth. You always look to me like more or less a happy person, a innocent flower person. Do you see this wrong, where you're not light and strolling through around and just full of wonder? You were not a dark person ever, right?
No, I was never a dark person. That's true. But I've confronted and I still do, I confronted my patterns of occasional anxiety, or what am I doing next? Or am I on the right path? This is human.
The point I'm trying to make is, and that is something that one of the things I've discovered on this podcast, some of the things I've so far discovered, you and me in that sense are quite similar in a certain way. I never had a massive childhood trauma, or I never had a massive problem of addiction, or, nothing ever horribly bad happened to me. Yes, of course, life moves here and there, but to say I had this moment of darkness or all of these things never happened to me. And if you listen to, I'd say 90% of the therapists, 90% of the people who come into the podcast, they all had this moment where they hit the wall, and so life has to change radically. And they looked what is out there, and they started their very motivated journey of transformation. So this is the story of this podcast every single day. Cases like you and I, who basically little flower butterflies, coming from a normal background, normal everything, but still have the curiosity that drives them to spirituality. To me, it looks like it's a massive minority of at least the people I've so far encountered in my 60 conversations I've had over the last 7 months.
Well, I don't know that I think you see me that way because the things that occurred in my life, I always looked. So I've had some crazy stuff. I've had cancer 3 times. Today I got the result of a biopsy that was benign. So I've dealt with that for about 2 weeks now, wondering. I've been assaulted 5 times. That I got out of, but I've had a mother that was extremely abusive. I mean, she put my brother in the hospital, abusive, it was a horror show. I called my house that I grew up in the House of Horrors. But I am a happy person. And I was always happy. I had to work through the trauma of those times, but I worked through it. And I worked through it with I started a spiritual path when I was 5 years old. And I think all those things that I'm telling you about, I never really slugged through them on the first time we met, was because I'm really clear of all that. So that all those things that have happened, I cleared them up. They don't linger inside of me. I use them to learn compassion. And they did teach me compassion in a very deep way. And then I took those in the deepest way. Hopefully, I'm somewhat the embodiment of compassion. I feel that way. I feel that sometimes I actually move into the beingness of compassion. And I'm so, not all the time, but I do have those moments where, and then I took that into the world. I worked with women incarcerated.
I remember.
And I worked as a victim's advocate with our Boulder Police Department. So I went to really traumatic situations, acute with the police, assault, suicides, a lot of death, to be the support for the remaining person or the person that was assaulted, and, some heinous things. But that's how I used my challenging experiences. I learned how to clear them up, clear them out of my consciousness, learn what they were meant to teach me. See, I think that there are no accidents. And I think that everything, even the things that look hard and dark, if you look at them as what are they here to teach me? They don't last inside, for one thing. They don't linger, and they don't weigh you down. But then they taught me the greatest lessons I could have as a human, that then I could go and do the volunteer work I did and stand with people. Not that I always said things. Sometimes it wasn't, I didn't say a word, especially with the police department. Sometimes there were no words to say, but just standing in the strength of compassion and loving and caring for people that are traumatized in that moment. And then they're healed in that moment because somebody understands, really understands. And also knows that you go over the mountain. You don't live with that. You don't have to live with that. Every human has a challenging life. There's always challenges we have. Maybe they don't come from the outside. Maybe they're from the inside. I do know a few people that have such a charmed life, and I just go, God bless them for their good karma. They came with some really good karma here. But most of us have things that bring us to the edge of of our learning and growth and expansion.
And
So
thank you for opening new chapters of your life I was not aware of. But still, I must keep that picture of Catherine in my head for therapy reasons only. I must believe that you started your journey from curiosity and not from the darkness of needs, that it was curiosity who drove you to spirituality and drove you for wisdom, the big eyes and the tugging of the world. That's how I desperately want to see you. So it's just...
Well, I did. Even the hard stuff that happened in my life and continues to happen, but I was curious first. And I don't know if I told you that story when we first met, but when I was 5 and I started asking inwardly, I guess I went to Sunday school, although I don't remember it, but I was praying to Jesus, I don't want to go to school. What is this life for? And I heard, the life is to be the best person you can be. That's very simplistic, but I was 5. And to be a servant here, to help out wherever you're asked. It may not be any big thing, but you just have that always to help out when you can. And then in my mind, I said, well, I have a life. I don't want to waste it. I guess somehow at 5, I sort of knew that there was an opportunity to waste it. So, and I don't know why I thought that as a 5-year-old, but I was very clear, I don't want to waste it. I want to be the best person I can. And then the opportunities really landed at my feet. But then that same year, when I turned 5, I went off into the woods. I was allowed to go in the woods by myself, where we went near Canada in the wilderness. And I went myself back into the woods on a deer trail. And I didn't have a parent's, voice in my head. I just was me and the woods and the trees. And I stopped and I just waited for the birds to quiet down because, they do their, danger, danger, they're squawking. And I thought if I'm really quiet, they'll take me in as part of their tribe here. And then I looked up through the canopy of leaves and into the sky and past the clouds, and it was beautiful. And I was struck by the beauty and the peace and the quiet, and that I was accepted there. And then I went, I don't think any of this is real. It's beautiful, but there is something behind all this. And I want to know what it is. That was the curiosity. I want to know what's behind this, what I can see. This is what I can see with my eyes. I want to know what's behind what I can't see with my eyes. And as I looked up, it was like the curtain parted and I saw the stars. I mean, it was a bright sunny day, but I saw the stars and then I saw like 3-dimensional stars, like back behind. So I felt like I could see stars upon stars upon stars and planets upon planets. And then I heard them.
Yeah.
And that I found later when I studied with teachers that came to my doorstep was what's called the sound current or the celestial melodies or the Nadi, the Nam, and these vibrational. And then as a 5-year-old, I said, oh, they're singing to each other. I heard them as if they were singing to each other. And then I saw this like web, this energy of sound going from star to star and that star to that star and that like a matrix. And I saw all that. And then each web or string of sound also had a light. It was also a bright, shimmery, shiny light. So the sound current has a light and a form. And I knew that they were all connected. I said to myself, why are they singing to each other in this connection that I saw? And then in my 5-year-old mind, I said, it came to me that because they're friends, which means they like each other. They all are connected. They all like each other. And then I went, here's the curiosity again that you brought up. I went, well, do I have a song? Does my beingness have a song? And is that connected to the stars and to the universes? And what is my part in all this? And where do I belong in all this? Beyond my life, beyond, my feet on the ground here on this deer trail, beyond the woods that I'm in and beyond the bird song, I'm part of that life. But where else am I part of? How am I also part of this existence that I'm now seeing that's way beyond the trees and the forest?
Can I ask you now, jumping on today, because the last couple of conversations I had spinning a lot around this subject that you just spoken, how do you see it today? Is it electromagnetism as something, protons as something? Is it fractal geometry and quantum physics like somebody else thinks? How you today see this light? Do you want to put a physicist's term to it, or you still think it's not necessary, or you're already moved on with your understanding of this light that creates this cosmic sound?
So there's a stillness, a silence that is even beyond the sound. That as I got older and started practicing spiritual practices and practicing the sound current, it led me even past the sound into a silence, which also is a oneness, where the physics of what you're talking about does no longer exist. Because we're no longer in a physical material world in that. There's another word that is said for the sound current. Sorry about my phone ringing. I don't know if you can hear it, but okay, good. Which is called the unstruck sound or the unstruck melody. So when you get to that level, there's no physics involved in that. It's beyond physics. It's beyond sound. It's unstruck.
Do you think it's important that we will never be able to explain it for physics? Are you waiting for the day that physics will discover it? Do you think this will be an important step for mankind? What is your wish or your aim for that?
Well, there's a saying that when the scientist took the mountain path to the peak, the summit of a giant mountain, he got up there and there was a priest. So that, that means that those that practice a spiritual practice are already there. And the world takes a while to catch up. I know we all want in this physical material world to be able to identify, describe, define, and put these things in a context and be able to feel and touch them. But what I'm talking about is beyond feeling and touching, and even way beyond the intellect. When you start practicing Nadi yoga, sound current meditation of this transcendent meditation type, you in my experience, okay? Everybody's a different experience. I can only talk about my experience here. And it's not what I learned from books. It's what I've experienced in the inner realms, is that there's really no references and no context. You have to work at that because you're really beyond the intellect into what the eternal is, the spark of the divine. If you have a reference point in God, how can you ever understand God or the creator? If you think and I don't mean as a deity, but I mean as a consciousness. And yet you can have a knowing. There is a knowing, but it's not in the way you can define it in your mind. It's an expansion so big and so broad in your consciousness that your mind is too small to comprehend it. It's ineffable. And yet you know it when you know it. And that's why you practice spiritual practices, because, excuse me, they move you into this ineffable knowing.
Unspoken knowing.
Yeah, unspoken. And yet we do try to put words on it. We try to put words on it so that we can have an understanding, at least a fraction of an understanding here in our everyday lives. Will that understanding go to the scientific community? I don't think it needs to. When people that need something to feel and touch to be able to believe it, they're going to need something that they can measure and quantify and put words on. But it dumbs it down when you do that, actually. However, I did practice for 25 years, a very long practice. My teacher, my sound current teacher, John Roger, I heard him say, people were asking him, people meditate and they fall asleep. And he said, well, it doesn't really matter because a part of your consciousness will be awake. That part that travels the spiritual realms will be awake. So it doesn't really matter. He said, but if you fall asleep, he said, but I always went for the awareness. So I heard that, and it was light bulb went off. And I went, that's what I want. I want to go for the awareness. I guess that curiosity again. So the way I practiced that was I would, when I did my spiritual practice and I came back to earth, back to my body, back to earth, back to my chair, I would just start writing down the sights, the sounds, the impressions, the awarenesses, that inner knowing. And at first, I thought, I'm just making this all up. I'm making it all up. I don't know if any of this is real, but I just kept doing it for 25 years. I just kept doing it. After about a year, I started to go, oh, I'm not making that up. I couldn't even think of it if I tried. And I would bring back little glimmers of the spiritual realms, the soul realms that were real. And over the time, I began to chart the topography, the geography, the sights, the sounds of the inner levels so that I could have the awareness and know where I was. This is what a great teacher will do for you. A great teacher has traveled those inner realms and brought the awareness back and knows them. And so a great guru, if you're in the East, a sound current teacher, they know these places, right? So it's like, if I come to Germany or I come to Austria, it's all new to me. I don't know the language. I don't know the streets. I don't read the street signs in German. And it all, at first, it's just like when you go to another country or something, if you've done that, it's all so new, and the smells and you don't quite have a place for it to recognize it. But over time, you start to recognize the words and know what they mean. You start to hear the language and start to pick out words and understand it. You get used to the sights and you can start making your way. You can start finding your way where you want to go. You get used to it and comfortable with it. Of course, now we have our phones. They can take us anywhere. But you know what I'm getting at? It's the same thing in the inner levels. And so, yeah.
I try to follow you. I'm caught up with I have a week of being a little bit more open to the scientific community. I had now a couple of really open and very awakened scientists in conversations. Last week was all about the science week. I had so many very deep conversations with scientists to try to bring this together, the spiritual reality with the scientific world, and they work very hard. And it's very hard for them to get funding. And the spiritual people do not really trust them. The academics look them a bit strange. So they are basically caught between everything, but they're really trying very honestly. And they think whatever is their motivation, yes, you found oneness, you found the path, and you've been traveled to so many different countries, so to say, on this earth and out of this earth. So, yeah, but I'm becoming a bit more like, not everybody theoretically can do what you do. Theoretically, everybody can experience all this greatness and can work on it. But by the end of the day, not everybody has the time, the will, the motivation, the resources, all of the things coming together. So if science can bring a better, at least some better understanding, as you said, like you go to Vienna now, you have a phone and you have a Google map and it can help you a little bit. So if science can be a little bit that Google map, that's not the solution. I'm with you. It's not the solution, but it might help a lot along the way. So I'm in a pro-science week.
Well, absolutely. I'm not saying that this path that I'm mentioning of spiritual practices means to throw science out. I mean, not at all. When I went to college, I studied hard sciences. That's what I was studying when I actually met the Lakota people on the ranch I was staying and went to sweat lodges and things. I was very skeptical. I was like, wait a minute, what does this have to do with anything? But I had the experience in a sweat lodge, in a pipe ceremony of something that I could not explain. And I trusted it. I simply trusted it and went, oh, there is something I cannot explain. It has changed me. It is so fun, and this is a great adventure. But I still got my degree in mostly in environmental biology. I it was they're not exclusive of each other.
And more not. There's a whole new generation of scientists who come with much far less prejudice and far less. They're really curious. They're really interested. They wanna connect. They wanna bring this together, and they're very motivated. It is so inspiring. By the end of the day, these conversations I had last week completely took me by surprise. I never saw it coming because I know scientists from the skeptical side and from all of this who are what you guys are doing with your spirits and stuff. And consciousness is only in the brain and la la la. And all of a sudden, there seems to be a whole new generation of scientists who says, no, we completely different path. And somehow they're smelling blood, that there's great knowledge to be found once we again bring the oneness of a human person together, not just cut them from the divine and just look at the brain and say, okay, that's it, and there's nothing left, nothing right. So they're smelling blood, and that's quite impressive to see.
That's wonderful.
And as
Yes.
you could have said to them, the priest is up there on the mountain, he said, we told you so. Last 2,000 years, we told you so.
It doesn't matter the path you take to get there. Whatever path goes to that. It's that apex, the pinnacle of the mountain, the summit it's a great life. Even if you just touch it for a moment, it'll change your life forever. And
Sorry.
then you can practice.
I have to say, because if you put me in this picture, I'm the guy who's very lazy on the bottom of the mountain and wait until he comes back down. That is my place in this story.
Wonderful. That's great. Wow. I mean, I don't think you have to meditate. I don't think you have to sit up and cross your legs. No, you can just lay down in a hammock. Just as good.
That's the picture. So we understand each other. It is my place.
Perfect.
Oh.
Just as good. And people do. I know you mentioned, well, people might not have the resources or the time or none of this takes much time. What I'm talking about, 5 minutes, sit down for 5 minutes, or don't sit down. Just chant those sacred tones while you're doing the dishes. It doesn't have to take much time.
It's mind time. That's what people are lacking. When will, motivation, and space coming together, and motivation, and overcoming the learning barrier of the brain, and stepping out of the stress, seeing the necessity of finding that peace, finding that tranquility. It is addictive, the buzzing, the phones, the information. It is also addictive, and endorphins constantly and whatnot, and shopping here and clicking there. And then you step into the silence, it also shows a little bit the emptiness of this fast, crazy, ecstatic life that we are living. So not everybody want to go down from the drug called modern life. That's designed to keep us pushing and keep us forward. So I'm very gentle these days, so to say, with the people, understanding it's not so easy to decide to calm yourself and then eventually open their eyes and say, what is it all worth for? Going to job, making more money, to take the money to go to holiday, lose the money, try again to make more money to buy the Christmas present, and then they go to the next money and plan for next summer holiday. And this, and after 40 years, you just look back on it, and you have tons of children toys in the cupboard, and you have in the garage some weird training exercise things that you don't know what they're good for. And I'm too much in love with people. I'm too kind to question that. It takes courage.
It does. It does. It takes courage, but I want to push back a little bit because I do think it's easy. I do think it's easy. I live in the same world everybody else lives in. We all do. But it's not for everybody. I will say that. It's not for everybody. Not everybody is called to an inner spiritual life. But if you are a little bit curious, if you are a little bit, maybe there is something beyond this. All that noise in the world, I don't look at it as something that I will succumb to. I look at it as a great challenge to overcome. And the more I overcome the temptations and the seductions of the worldly things, they've always been on the planet. This is not new, just in different shapes and sizes and forms. It's always been on the planet. That field of seduction to pull you out of your true self has always been here. It's not more now. It's just we know it now because this is when we're looking out of our eyes that are alive. It's always been here. And each human confronts the choice to take some time out of that or not be pushed and pulled by that. You know, Jesus has said, I am in the world, but I'm not of the world. We all have that choice.
Yes.
And as you practice an inner, and it doesn't have to take long. I'm telling you, 5 minutes a day. That's it. And you don't even have to sit down and be quiet. You can do it while you're in the shower. Just find the divine stream of light, connect with it, open your awareness to it, listen, see as you invite it, and take a moment to go, there it is. I did it just like that. And then go on with your life. Or when you become even more adept, you can be multidimensionally aware and do everything in this life as you do, and always have a part of your awareness listening to the sound current, Om, Hu, some of the sacred sounds, listening to the songs of the stars as you do your daily life, aware of both. Just like when you're driving, you're thinking about where you're going, hopefully, in my town, hoping for a parking place, thinking about what I'm going to get at the grocery store when I find the parking place, and driving at the same time. That we're multidimensionally aware, just driving. We can be that in spirit and everyday life at the same time. So you can overcome the buzz, the noise, and be aware of it and not in it and not weighted down by it and not addicted to it and not anything by it. Just blessing it. And those people that are captivated in it and in its thralls, and we just bless them. And when one person lifts out of that, even for a moment, we all lift. But there are temptations and seductions on this planet. It's designed that way. This is not heaven. Heaven is heaven. Heaven is within. This is not heaven. This is the place of challenges, of trials, of things that make our souls grow bigger into the level of our souls itself. That first spark of creation, making that bigger. I had that. I know that inside and out. I had a vision. I was driving one day and I was young, and I was asking God, I was having a conversation with God, God, why is this life? Why are these diseases and cruelty and wars and all these things that are so awful, and people suffer and there's hunger? And I was taken out, and I heard this voice and said, just what I'm saying to you, this is not heaven. This was never meant to be heaven. This is the place where souls come to learn and grow. You've heard this, right? To learn and grow, it's a classroom. This is almost cliche now. This is a classroom. We learn and we grow. And I said, but will it ever get better? Is it ever going to be, where the lions lay down with the lambs? And what I heard was yes. Yes. But then there will be another planet, another dimension where souls go to learn. But the earth itself will get a break. Because it's also a consciousness. And it's doing a great service for so many souls. It's a consciousness. It's a being. Like we are beings. It's just this big, huge being that lets us walk around on its skin. And it's allowing that. And in its service, and eventually it won't have to do that. That was the vision and the words. But there'll be another place. So that's another reason that the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that have come to my life, I've understood that they were just to learn and grow, and that never to expect this place to be heaven. And what I did with all that, I said, bring it on. Then bring it on. Because I want to learn as much as I can while I have the opportunity in this classroom. Now, sometimes I've regretted that, but then bring it on. I really regretted it. And I've said, vacation, please. Don't bring any more on. I've got enough to handle. I'm definitely learning. The learning curve is going straight up, and I need a break. And I've gotten a break. Things have calmed down. And then, I don't really say bring it on anymore, honestly.
That's the wisdom, and the wisdom of the age.
It happens when you get older. Yeah.
And it happens when I'm talking to you that the time is flying too fast because we have one big passion together. You're the big master. I'm very passionate about it. And this is vibrations with sound and sound healing. And this is one of my great passions. And I know you will like to make it your life works. Yeah. So that's always the one we could talk for hours. And that's the one that we always keep too short, which is a kind of almost logic. But let's spend the little time we have left and really talk about this universal sound, this frequencies, the sacred frequencies, and why it is so crucially, as you said, that the stars singing to each other, exchanging humans. So did you find your sound? Of course, you must ask after your explanation as a 5-year-old child, have you found your melody? Have you found your sound? And why do you think, and I think one of the best ways to ignite the spark within people are frequencies? That's the purest and most direct form, so to speak. And basically everything is frequency. If it's sacred symbols are frequencies, just sound made into symbols and symbols made into sound and so on and so forth. Let's spend this last couple of minutes we have as much as we can squeeze in. And if we go back to Winnie the Pooh shapes and sizes, I'm also fine with it. Cool.
So, we can bring it really down to a practical level in the body. One of the things, everything has frequency and sound, as you said. And when I had, so I want to give your listeners something to hold on to here that they can take away. One of the things I would say to take away is if you just want a really simple inner spiritual practice, just practice Om. That's a sound that people know from yoga. I like to practice the hu or hu. I've learned that with the Sufis and some other traditions, and my teacher John Roger used the hu. And that's a very high vibration that will bring you to greater awareness and awakening as you listen inwardly. On a physical level, though, one thing I bumped into when I had cancer was I started listening to the sounds. And yes, I've found that inner melody that everybody has. For me, it changes. It's just not one melody that I am, or that my beingness plays in this universe, in this world. It changes day to day. I actually made an album listening to it. But
Do you think it is connected with the water inside our body? Is this where you think the frequencies come into play? Or how do you see the frequencies technically manifest in the body?
so when I had cancer, I was just starting on that and I got sidetracked. I could hear it. So I had this recurrence and it wasn't showing up on the scans. It was too small. I'd already gone through radiation. They said it was cured, but I could hear this and it was not a pleasant sound. So some people might feel it. It's like a grating. It's like when you're in harmony, you feel it's smooth and soft. And when you hear a noise, like maybe a saw or something, it's dissonant and jagged. And that's how cancer sounded to me. Yeah, it was dissonant and jagged, like kind of like, and it just never stopped. And so I learned that different things in the body have a sound and a frequency. So then I took that, I was just exploring and playing with it. And I went and I listened or felt each of my organs. Okay. So that I could then reference their vibrational frequency. And then I listened to the whole of my body to feel the harmony when all of the cells, the organs, the bones, the muscular structure, when it's all in harmony, it has this very smooth, beautiful feel, vibration, sound. So then I could use that very practically in knowing if I was getting a cold, for example, because the sound comes first before it actually manifests in the body. So I know this is maybe crazy stuff for people and it's kind of advanced in a way, but then other people I know hear this without any meditation practice. But I would say if you want something to take your listeners with, is if you want just a real practical how you use this in everyday life, is just take a couple minutes to just scan the vibrational frequencies of your body, organs, and even your thoughts and your emotions. And then take a great spiritual chant like Hue or Om and hum that and bring that right in. This is what's called Nadi yoga, the yoga of sound, where you use sound in your physical body to bring you to harmony.
You know that there's also a Sufi tradition with that, right?
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, they even have their own chakra teaching. It's very similar. Many people forgot that old stuff way back.
It's so ancient. It's so ancient, and it's all there. I mean, I didn't get taught this. I just found it.
Yeah.
And then I've been using it ever since, which is about 14 years now. And so that I can,
Do you think do you see a difference between using, for example, those sound balls that are very popular, those balls in different colors that you can activate and so you can go for the sounds, versus creating it from inside out through chanting? Do you see different effects, or you think it all works as well?
I think whatever works. I love going to sound baths. Oh, it's so nurturing, isn't it? It's just so wonderful and nurturing. And those vibrations really harmonize, in my experience, after what people call a sound bath. Everything is harmony and working really well. That sound just penetrates, doesn't it, of the crystal bowls. And if I don't have crystal balls, I'm doing it before I get up in the morning. And you can just hum even, just a beautiful hum. I was doing that, as I mentioned, I had to have this biopsy. There was just something and I just went in there and was like, oh God, I gotta and I just started humming. And then I started humming with the doctor doing the procedure, and she started humming. And then I said, well, let's harmonize. And so we were, this is just, they were delighted, the technician and the doctor, and it brought this something that could be very disturbing to get, tissue taken out of you to go to the lab. It just made it very uplifting, but also calmed me down.
I can imagine. But by the way, it is one of my great question marks I have in life. I do not understand why there's not some serious research with frequencies and illnesses and how they respond. I think this could be the prime diagnostic method in this world if we just, make a serious study where we test those frequencies and how they respond on a lot of patients with different illnesses. As you said, you hear cancer, you heard that. It's out of my mind understanding because it's all there. As you said, the knowledge is just there. 2,000 years, the Indians are chanting and God knows who, the Sufis are chanting and they're chanting, we're all chanting. The universe is chanting, we're all trying our best. But it seems still the modern science don't see that this could be a prime diagnostic method, I think.
Oh my gosh, I think you're totally onto something. I was texting my girlfriend about it, and she goes, and I was telling her, this thing that they have to do is so invasive. And she was like, why don't they have tricorders like in Star Trek? Well, and scan your body, and you don't have to, but we're not there yet. We're not. Science isn't there yet.
And
they will be.
Some mean people say they make much more money with the diagnostic methods they have now. This would be way too cost effective and therefore not in the interest. That's not me talking. I'm just saying what a lot of people are saying. I have no opinion. I don't know why. I just simply think they're arrogant and that's it. That's my theory. No conspiracy. They're just bone level-headed, and it's not gonna happen.
Eventually, it will happen. It will happen.
Yes.
The goodness wins out. It always wins out. Goodness wins out. It may take a long time to get there, but goodness wins out.
I see 5 minutes more, and I actually wanted to spend a good half an hour talking about your program, which you started your program around the time when I started my podcast. You gave me a preview. I got a couple of days using the program. To be very honest, one should be reading and being inspired, but I always just get replaying your chanting because that would make me so happy. So I was like, read the text, and I was like, she won't know. And I was playing the chanting 3-4 times and being so happy. So I'm so sorry I didn't try the whole program because I just loved the chantings did at the end of the sessions, daily sessions. So what has come to this program? For whom is it? What is it good for? How is it working? Will you continue pushing that way? Is this the way forward?
Yes, it's called Soul and Spirit Daily Meditation and Spiritual Practice Program. So what I've done with all these different traditions I've been exposed to and studied with, and then the practicing of 50 years of many different spiritual practices, I just honed them down and I came up with the most profound things. One is a invocation or an invitation to your spirit, to awareness and awakening. One is, I love so many of the ancient spiritual teachers throughout history. So I find gems of their teachings. And I put that in there and I recorded all these. So there's 5 recordings that are individual. So like you could just go to the chanting and listen to it over and over again. What speaks to you? I did that intentionally because I knew that different people, different parts of it would speak to them. And then that might change over time. So then you can go back and so the teaching, and then I do an affirmation based on the teaching. And that just helps you direct your mind and emotions. So it helps master your mind and emotions on that level. Then I took a chant from some of the melodies that I've heard, and I have 6 of them, and I recorded one of the sacred ancient bija mantras, plus Hugh and Anai Hugh, those Sufi mantras, and others use those mantras. And then I have a guided meditation, and it's all in 5 to 7 minutes. So it doesn't take long. And if you can sit down and be quiet, all the better. But if you do it while you're in the shower or washing dishes or whatever you're doing, at least you're bringing that vibrational frequency into your consciousness, and it will help you lift and transcend the physical into the spiritual.
How were the responses so far? Are people reacting like me? They really enjoyed it. You get very lovely feedback.
Yeah, I have. People like it, and a lot of people think, well, meditation is so hard. My mind just goes and goes and goes, or I don't have time to sit down. And I say, well, don't try to stop your mind. That doesn't work at all, because it's like, if I say to myself, I want to stop my mind goes even more. Like if I say, do not think of pink elephants, you start thinking most people have pink elephants. So what you can do is transcend your mental chatter with the chanting. So for example, when you're singing or humming, is your mind going? Is your mind chattering? No, it doesn't usually when you're singing or you're chanting. That's why chanting is such an ancient practice. It just focuses your mind. And then it focuses on the chant. So and then when you use the highest vibrational word or syllable that you can, like Hu or Om, then like a tuning fork, you start to lift to that level of energy and consciousness. And Hu goes right through the levels of consciousness, the astral, mental, causal, which is emotions, etheric, unconscious, subconscious, up into the soul. And then when your mind starts chattering again, you start your chant again. And then you be quiet and you listen. And that's where maybe you can hear, feel, see the sound current, what is beyond us, what comes right from the creative force, the spiritual source. And then when you put your toe in that water, in that stream, in that field of energy, then you just go. You just let it take you.
Yes. Catherine, with this wonderful, unfortunately, I could talk for hours with you, you know that, but we have an hour and we're already 5 minutes above. Thank you so very much. Everybody, there'll be all the links down there to Corona, to the program, to all of it. And of course, we're making these conversations for you. So we welcome your comments, we welcome your input. This is your show. We love to talk to each other, but we're recording it so you become with us, one of us. So we really welcome and appreciate taking the time and letting a little bit of a message to us. Thank you very much, Corona. I hope I will see you again.
I hope to see you too.